Welcome to the Eclipse OpenJ9 May 31st community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees, just so we have some idea of who's been regularly attending these calls. And I'll pause here. If there's something you want added to the agenda that isn't on the agenda, speak up now. We can tackle it right off the bat, or feel free to add it to the any other business section at the end of the agenda, and we'll tackle it when we get there. So I'll pause if somebody wants to chime in or jump in with a thing that needs to be handled off the top. Okay, then we'll move forward. I don't see a lightning talk scheduled for this week, so we'll move past that. But if you do have one, please reach out to me. We'll get it scheduled in. Let's take a look at the recent end user raised issues. There's a question related to native methods, which I see you've sent over to Toby. I have to take a look at that and see what the correct response is there. Otherwise, I don't see anything else that's come in recently. We'll mention that there has been a lot of chatter from one user asking for floating point changes. At this point, the answer we've given them is that they need to build a library and build consensus around that approach rather than having us implement that for them. So if you see more of these issues get opened or reopened, feel free to either send them to Pete or myself. We haven't already jumped on them. Is there anything else in this list that needs some attention? Or something somebody wants to call out? Jump back to the agenda, and that brings us up to the release roadmap section. So we're looking at the 033 release, which is the next quarterly update. I see that our branch has proceeded and that we were targeting May 23rd for the M1 start. Did those builds get created?
No, that status is up to date. There's problems doing the builds right now, which we're trying to resolve today. So if they do get resolved, then we'll get the M1 builds going. But until they're resolved, we won't have any M1 builds.
Let's take a look at the release then. There are 18 open items in here. There are at least 2 that have blocker marked on them. So probably should start with those, and then we can talk about the others. So the DAA load test. Looks like Henry's been looking at this. Is there a more recent update?
I'll defer to Henry on that one. Henry, you're on the call?
Yes, sorry, I was just unmuting. Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure out what's going on. It's a very intermittent problem. We've got 3 different, slightly different tracebacks on different platforms, but I've been looking at the last crash that happened on Linux, x86, and there I'm suspecting there might be, it's possible that it's something to do with the cached method exception table information, that it might be looking at some stale information associated with a null pointer exception. But I'm just trying to figure out whether that really is what's happening. I'm hoping that the failures that are happening on the other platforms are the same reason, but I haven't really delved into them yet.
And does this, we have this labeled as a blocker. Do we have a view yet on whether this is actually a blocker?
That's probably questionable. The failure rate for one of the modes seemed to be high enough to get blocker status, but I don't think it was quite high enough in the standard modes. I did label it as a blocker, but I guess we could argue that it's not.
Okay, I'll leave that to you guys to work out if the failure modes have changed, become less frequent. The other blocker is one that we have moved forward in the past. I scroll down and take a look at this. The last update was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I still need to look at this. I know since that we passed it to the VM, they GAC and Bebney did some analysis on the core, and they have some observations, and they need some input from us. I have to swap it into my head. Sorry, I haven't had time to look at this one in a little bit, but I'll have to do it at some point.
I'm a little concerned when I hear at some point, given how close we are to our release date. Is this something that we're getting prioritized to get cleared out, or are we making the argument again that it's not a blocker?
I never really thought it was a blocker in the first place, just because of the stress modes required to reproduce it. But it can get some attention from me by the end of this week.
Stick a note to that in the issue, so we'll know to track that. Okay, so if we go back to the release plan, that's 2 of the 18 items. How are we looking for the rest of these? Are we in a state that these are likely to close out in the appropriate time? I'm just going to flip back and check the schedule date, right? We're hoping to start M2 by June 27th. Are we on track for having this closed out for that date?
It seems likely we're going to have to move quite a few of these out. One of them is supposed to have a fix, I think maybe on the Omar side, that should hopefully propagate through, and then we'll have to evaluate if it's the risk is okay to put into this release. And some of the other ones have been assigned owners and are being worked. It just depends on how much progress is made.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is it sounds like a lot of these things are going to have to roll forward.
Likely, yeah.
All right, it's good to get as many of these closed out as we can, but anything that we think has to be closed out, please do add a blocker tag to it so that we will track those especially closely. Looking at this, we have 27 days until M2. That's already getting tight for getting these changes in.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want to take anything last minute unless it seemed very important.
And very safe.
Yeah.
Just, I will mention again that we are dealing with 4 releases at this point. The 3 LTS plus the feature release, so that's additional build load and testing load to get these things out. So please, the earlier we can get them done, the better. Right, that brings us to the Java 19 plan, where we still have a bit of time because we're not branching until July 22nd. I'll pull up that plan as well so we can take a quick look at if there's anything in here that needs immediate attention, and then we'll switch down to talk about the Panama and Loom changes. So is there anything in here people want to call out?
I don't know if it's reflected in here. Probably the biggest thing is that we're blocked on taking any further JDK 19 updates. We're stuck at build 21, and everything else is sitting in the staging branch. So at the third from the bottom, I do see the initial changes to support Project Loom, so that's what we're waiting for. And that will hopefully unblock us and get us back on the latest code.
Are we close with this PR?
Let Toby talk about that one.
Actually, Jack's on the call, I see, so we can describe in detail what the next steps are.
So I've highlighted out in the Loom section later. So we're currently a bit blocked on testing because FFI changes have also been merged into head, which is blocking the spill. I believe there was a PR by Chang that was merged yesterday, which unblocked it for us. That's when we can officially start the testing for this change. I've been running the testing locally, folder by folder, to avoid the FFI change breaking up. So currently we're seeing some errors in thread related testing, and also there's a hang in JCL. Other than that, I was able to get most of our function standard tests to pass in, I think, was Java 8 and above, and up to Java 18 and above, all of them. There was only a few test cases that were failing, while all the rest were passing correctly as we expected. So right now I am investigating those failures that we're seeing in Sanity function. In terms of this PR, we can merge it as is to avoid backing out all the new changes in, but we would have to most likely temporarily disable some of the testing in order to have it continue to run.
Do you have a list of the tests that are failing?
Yeah, I have a small list that I am not sure covers everything, but
Because it would be good to get that list into this PR so we can, and updating that list as things get fixed or as new broken tests get found, just so we
Right.
have an accurate view of what we will be trading off if we merge this.
yeah, I will update that PR with the list of test cases I have on hand that we know are failing.
It would also be good to get the list of buckets of tests that have not been run yet, so
Yep.
that we have an accurate view
When
of
we
where we
say the
stand.
list of tests that have not been run, do we mean sanity test or like every?
Like, what have you tried? Have you tried extended functional? Have you tried the system
No,
tests?
I am only running sanity functional right now.
Yeah, so we're looking for what, I guess what you have tried or what you haven't tried, whichever is easiest. So it sounds like the list of what you have tried would be a shorter, easier list.
Yeah, and just make it clear that there's a lot of things that have not been tried.
Right. Okay. I will update that.
Jack, is this a thing where having more people help with this would move this forward more quickly? Or in case there would be a lot of stepping on each other?
I think in terms of the testing part, if we're looking to get more people involved, it would definitely help in terms of speeding up the investigation on different tests.
Okay. Are there others you can pull into this investigation with you?
We do have a new co-op who is working on DDR, and I think once he's done that, we can definitely have him working on this part. Other than that, I'm not sure who would be available. I'll probably give that answer to Toby.
Once we know what's broken, it'll be easier to split up the work and tackle that in parallel. But I think right now we just need the list of, what needs to be addressed, and then we can take that step.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that if we wait for the sanity list to be determined, there's a list of the sanity extended and some of the other test buckets that we'll get through this one and then we'll discover the next set. If we could parallelize the running of some of these tests and figuring out how many things are broken, that would give us a much clearer picture of how far from being able to take this patch we are. I'll leave that to you guys work out to see if there's others that can be pulled into this, just as a way to speed up some of that test effort. We have a better sense of how far we are from being able to update to the latest 19.
Yeah, I'd suggest that we try the Sanity OpenJDK test suite and see where we stand with that. There are 4 known failures, which I can help tell you which ones are the known failures. And if we're getting a whole pile of other failures, those would be interesting to look at, because especially since they would probably have new tests to test Loom, assuming we've brought those tests in.
All right.
Since we're already talking about Loom, are there other pieces of this that you want to call out, Jack, or updates on this?
Yeah, so for Loom, there have been discussions going on in terms of how the implementation for Virtual Start will be done. I think the latest plan that we will be implementing the Loom changes in the continuation class, which is the backend support for Virtual Start to do the thread mount and unmounting operations. Our current plan is that we'll have all the necessary information stored in a native structure, and that structure will be a hidden field to the continuation class. The most information will be all the necessary pointers for continued bytecode operation and a Java stack allocated. We're dismissing the idea of fully having a new J9 VM thread for each virtual thread. We'll just be swapping the data from the continuation's native structure over to the carrier thread, and when we're unmounting it, we'll store it back and restore the carrier thread's stack. In terms of GC, we will be keeping a separate virtual thread list, which will not be a root path for GC. Instead, the virtual thread should be discovered by GC through scanning in global GC on the Java heap and on threads. Any virtual threads that have not been discovered by GC during a global GC will be free.
Does that affect your timeline here?
I've been updating the timeline to extend it a bit. I think I've added an extra week or two to the full implementation, just so that we're aware of the sanity issue we're having, which would most likely take a week or two to fix.
Okay, so our May 20 deadline is red, is what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Our June 3 to 10 deadline looks like we're also red.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're getting basic support by June 24th, is that the VM basic support? Is that the GC side of things?
We're looking into having the VM support to be able to create and run basic virtual thread. In terms of GC, I think there needs to be a new recognized scanned object type for continuity to be added. And also, there might need to be added to lock the virtual thread list after a global GC. I am not sure how long that would take the GC team to work on.
Really good to sit down with Dimitri
Yeah,
or with Alex and get those details figured out.
we have a meeting on Thursday to discuss about that with
Okay,
both
good.
GC and J team.
Okay. It'd be good to keep expanding on this plan and fleshing it out so that we have an accurate timeline for when we expect Loom support to be available and what the state the GC pieces will need to be in and any JIT changes that'll be required as well.
Yeah, definitely. I will be looking into updating this timeline every week with the most recent update we have.
Okay. Thanks, Jack. Cheng, do you have an update on Panama? Cheng, I see you're off mute, but I don't hear you, so I don't.
Sorry. Can you hear me, Dan?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Not too much. I'm still looking for new changes in Java 19, and we're waiting for the changes merged from OpenJ9 staging to OpenJ9. So already get started updating some of code, but still waiting for them. I need to create new changes on top of that.
Okay.
That's it.
Looking at the timeline you have here, early to mid-June, you were expecting primitive support on Power and Power Linux and AIX.
Yep.
Are we still on track for that?
Yep. Everything's on track.
All right, and for the other platforms as well, we're still thinking they're on track as well, given where we're at.
I think Darren, do you need updates on other platform?
Z and AR64 are being worked on right now. I think sometime in June is still realistic. x86 is not going to start for another. I think I told Julian another couple of weeks or so. So that might spill into early July. That's just for the JIT work. I don't know about all the other platform work and testing that might need to happen on the feature as a whole.
Cheng, have you built time into this plan for the testing, the follow-up, and addressing the issues that are coming out?
You mean on the power?
On all the platforms.
So yeah, already have all the test cases out there, but it's ready. So if you run it, try out test case, that should be fine. It covers all platforms. Most of them is independent platforms.
All right. Thanks, Cheng. Is there anything else we want to call out around the Java 19 release?
There's a new JEP, FYI, structured concurrency incubator.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand with Loom, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that there's anything we need to do for that.
It's built completely on the virtual threads, JEP. From a VM perspective, there's nothing additional for that. Once we have full support in virtual threads, we should just be able to get that.
Okay, makes sense. I did create a tracking item just to keep an eye on it, but
And I guess let's move down to the other business. Is there any update from the Adopt folks? I know the marketplace has gone live, so congrats on that. I don't have any other updates there. So if we skip forward, Adam, do you have an update on the infrastructure?
No huge diff from last week, but the one point I'll make aware is June 2nd, we're going to lose our A-Linux machines so that they can upgrade the underlying host. They expect it to be at most a day. So we'll be blocked on that platform. We do have some A-Linux at OSU, but they're not set up yet. So if we don't get those set up in time, we will be blocked for pull requests and acceptance builds and all those.
Okay. Will that prevent builds from promoting at this point?
I believe so. I think the OMR acceptance build has A-Linux in it as well as the OpenJDK acceptance.
It's a single day, though. I mean, we don't even necessarily have acceptance builds every day. So as long as it doesn't extend out too long, I don't think there's going to be much of an impact.
Here. Anything else we need to call it around infrastructure?
Nope.
Devin, do we have an update on the CMake?
Nothing really new to report there.
We were working on something to enable CMake cross compilation. Did that ever get done?
No, I got sidetracked with some other stuff. So yeah, I'm just working on creating that PR now.
Sounds good.
Checking if Marius is on for an update around JIT server, but I don't see him on the list, so we'll skip over that. Call out the next microJIT meeting is June 16th. Toby, is there something you want to call out around the CRIU support?
Yeah, so in the last few weeks from a development standpoint, we've been looking at adding security providers. So first batch had, it was hitting an issue because it was using dev random, which is a blocking call. So on checkpoint, we had very variable performance, many seconds in certain cases. And so there's a fix in progress for that to address that behavior. And once we've addressed the performance concerns, I think we're completed the initial security support for checkpoints. At the same time, we're working on addressing time-related behaviors in the JCL APIs, so things like nanotime, usages of current time millis. These are things that can become erroneous on restore. So we're looking at specific cases where we need to modify either the API or the return from some of these APIs in a restore a run, essentially. So we've addressed system nanotime. We're currently looking at Java util timers, as well as some of the MX Bean APIs that report elapsed time. We're looking at making modifications there to better reflect the real time, not the time that includes the duration for which the JVM was not active. And yeah, those are the updates.
Toby? Is there an update on the Mac M1 work?
Let's give a quick update here because I unfortunately have to drop. But yeah, thanks to some work from Keith, we're able to enable GDR now on Mac M1. So that was done in Headstream, and there's work happening right now to get it ported into the 0.33 release. So yeah, so things are looking good on the testing front there. That's about it for now.
And is compressed ref still pending?
It's still pending.
Designed for that?
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Thanks, Daryl. Keith, is there an update on the shared library rename?
No, I haven't spending time on that in the last week.
So,
At this point, are we saying that we've missed the 033 release then?
I think probably that's the right call.
Babneet, is there an update on the OpenJDK method handles for 8 and 11?
I think last week you were here, so we did run a Liberty throughput benchmark to see how much class memory varied with OpenJDK, and there was a little. And I think we also pushed 2 years, which allows OpenJDK method handles to be enabled in 8 and 11 with just the configure option, which is -- enable OpenJDK. We have just moved a little bit forward to support OpenJDK method handles in 8 and 11. And that's my update. Back to you.
It would be really good to get a blog post or a statement written up that outlines what we're doing and why we're doing, so that we can point users to this if they do run into issues or have questions about what's changed with the method handle implementation. So I know you've done a lot of work on benchmarking and validating this change. If you could write some of that up into a blog post or a more official piece of communication that we can point people at, that would be a great point to be at.
Yep, I will add it to my list. And I think there's a runtime utility talk coming on this topic as well by the end of the month. And I think I will add it to the list and try to get it around the same time, because I think that talk will also have similar content, or have some of the content related to her.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that we should tackle this week?
Just to go back to the Mac M1 DDR. So Daryl, you said that the changes are being ported to 033?
I think they're already in the 33 branch.
Yep.
Okay. I was going to say, because when I do the M1 builds, the pipelines don't have a config difference from head to a release branch. So we've enabled it in head, so it would fail in the milestone builds if the changes weren't there.
It'd be fine now, as of this morning.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else to tackle this week? Okay, then thank you everybody, and we'll call it here. We'll have the next one of these on June the 7th.